Welcome to day 65 of the New Way. I'll read John 5:16 through 18. So because Jesus was doing these things on the Sabbath, the Jewish leaders began to persecute him. In his defense, Jesus said to them, "My Father is always at his work to this very day, and I too am working." For this reason they tried all the more to kill him. Not only was he breaking the Sabbath, but he was even calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God. Up until this time, the Pharisees and other Jewish leaders were just checking to see what Jesus was teaching, out of curiosity and responsibility. We've seen that Jesus was pushing them to change their ways and see what their own scripture said about him. He was challenging them to examine their laws and see if they lined up with God's laws. He warned them to think and examine their own behaviors. Here John notes that things changed. Instead of just watching and listening to Jesus, they began to openly persecute him. I don't know what all that involved, but I assume that they made it harder and harder for him to preach and teach and heal and do what God intended for him to do. What else does John say that they were trying to do? In John 5:18. I'll read that for you again. John 5:18. For this reason they tried all the more to kill him. Not only was he breaking the Sabbath, but he was even calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God. The Pharisees had three major complaints against Jesus. One was that he didn't observe the Sabbath laws. We'll table that one for a later discussion. I promise we'll get to it. But let's talk about the other two complaints. He was calling God his Father, and he was making himself equal with God. Were the Pharisees accurate in their charges? Yes. Now I can claim to be Joan of Arc, and that would mean that I'm either a liar or completely off my rocker, insane. But what if I claim to be Dale? There's nothing wrong with that because I am Dale. We'll look at Jesus' reply to these complaints tomorrow. In his service, Dale.